Hello and welcome to a Friday super regional edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. You are looking live at Eric Llewellyn in Corvallis, Oregon, Kurt Weiler in Atlanta, Georgia, and of course me, Pat Burnham, in Tallahassee. All right, now Lulu, we woke you up this morning. Before we get going, just do you have some travel advice for people going to Corvallis after your trip on hotels? Because before we got started, we were talking about the hotel situation in Corvallis, and if you're a Tallahassee or Florida State person and remembered Prince Murat Hotel on Thomasville in Tennessee, Street on Monroe, Lulu gave pretty high recommendations for staying at a Prince Murat type hotel in Corvallis.
I did not. No, I did not. It's just, this is not a big place. I think the population of Corvallis is a little over 60,000. You've got a fairly large university here with Oregon State, where I think that's just under 40,000 students. So it's not a very big place. We actually flew into Eugene, which is about a little less than an hour south of Corvallis, and I guess most people that are coming are either flying into Eugene or flying into Portland. Portland's a little more to the south of Eugene, so that's probably an hour and 15 minutes or so away if you're flying into Portland. So there aren't really a lot of easy ways to get here, and by easy ways I mean hop on a plane, land, and you're here. It's just not it's not a large enough city for that, so you do have to get a little creative when it comes to getting to Corvallis. But it's a quaint little town.
Yeah, what's the weather like up there compared to here?
It's going to be actually much warmer than what is typical, and I would imagine that Florida State likes that. The normal high temperatures this time of year in Corvallis, you're looking at a normal June high of 73, which is what they had last weekend. They had really nice temperatures. We're supposed to be 86 degrees today, I think. And then right around the same tomorrow, and then 94 on Sunday, which, like I said, that's you get up to that 94 on Sunday. That's 20 degrees above what they normally see in June. The press box there is not air conditioned because it's not an issue for them. Because again, you're talking about normal high temperatures around the low 70s this time of year. So they've had portable AC units shipped in there to put them into the press box to make that a little bit better. And I know yesterday when I was in there, those worked just fine. But again, this is not the type of weather that they're used to having this type of year.
All right. So the balls might be flying.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Yesterday, the ball did not look to me like it carried much at all in this ballpark yesterday when the team took batting practice. I watched quite a bit of that, and a couple of guys took balls out here or there, but I really didn't see a lot of balls flying out of this park. The wind's going to be a little bit different today than it was when we were there yesterday. You had more of a crosswind blowing from left field fair pole to right field fair pole. Today it's going to be blowing out to right, which, with all the left-handed bats for Florida State, hopefully that will be something of an advantage for FSU. But again, especially to left and center, I just didn't see a lot of carry in this ballpark.
All right. I don't know how you can answer this question, but I'll ask it just because I want to try to give people a feel for it. But when Kurt had a writer from Oregon State write about the Oregon State baseball team, he mentioned that he thought Oregon State had a home field advantage because of the way their stadium is set up, and it looks like the fans are right on top of you. How would this compare to some of the stadiums, or what stadium would it be similar to that maybe Florida State has played in the past?
I don't know that I can really make a comparison. It's not a big ballpark at all. It seats in the 3,500 to 3,600 range. They've shipped in temporary seating beyond each of the outfield walls to increase that. They had a record crowd Monday in their game against USC that was somewhere around 46 or 4,700. So again, they have shipped in some temporary seating for postseason last week and this week. But it does look like everything's kind of right on top of the field because it is kind of a smaller ballpark, a little bit quaint. originally built in 1907, though obviously they've done a lot of work to it since then. But yeah, it's from what I understand, it's very loud. It's a very tough place to play. So that's going to present some problems. I know Link talked about it yesterday. You work on those things, the nonverbal signs that you have, you work on those, maybe focus on them a little bit more in this type of situation. So I don't think it's anything that Florida State hasn't seen before, because obviously FSU's gone to some tough places to play. I think it just is, it's just one of those things you have to deal with. You have to try to play through.
Yeah. All right. So it's a long trip over there. So I'm going to let my football operations nerd part of me come out. How has the trip gone logistically? Everything smooth? And that's a long way to go. 3,000 something miles. A lot of people with the travel party. Has everything gone smooth logistically?
Yeah, everything's been fine. Other than we had a little bit of weather there in Tallahassee right before we left on Wednesday, which caused us to sit and wait for about an hour before we could get out of there. But that wasn't, again, that's not a big deal. It was actually a shorter trip than when we went out to Berkeley, because we flew commercial to Berkeley. So we had to go through Atlanta and then out to San Francisco and then bus up to Walnut Creek where we were staying. So that was a little bit of a, again, from a logistical standpoint, made that one a little bit longer than this one. We chartered out here. So got to hop on the plane, and once we took off, I think it was just over 5 hours was the actual flight time. So it wasn't that bad. Nice view of the Rockies as we flew across the country, and some snow-capped mountains that we saw along the way. But yeah, logistically, it's been fun.
Yeah. All right. So you guys are the subject matter experts on this particular matchup. I know Kurt's done a lot of work on this. He's got several articles previewing this matchup between Florida State and Oregon State. And so I'm going to let you guys handle most of it. I just got a couple. I wrote down 3 questions, and these may lead us into other talking points. But, the thing that stuck out to me is Vellini is pitching tonight, as opposed to Jamie Arnold, who has been the day or game 1 starter for most of the season, if not the entire season. How do you, both of you guys, I want to get both of you's take on this. Obviously Arnold's getting the same number of days of rest, but pitching in the second game. And obviously that means Mendez would go on Sunday if necessary. What is y'all's take on Leak switching up the rotation to I know it's not totally switching it up because Arnold's got the same days of rest he normally does, but Vellini starting game 1. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I think first of all, you're playing best 2 out of 3. So if your order is Vellini or Arnold or Vellini, those 2 guys are both going to pitch, no matter how you do it, no matter what order you do it. I would think again that this is more about just leaving guys on their same day. That we saw last weekend. Again, like you said, Pat, with the rest, keeping the number of days rest that you're used to getting. The other side of that, too, is I think Joey, from a freshness standpoint, he only threw 45 pitches last week in that start against Bethune-Cookman after we had the weather delay. He didn't come back out. You go back the week before that, he didn't actually have a start. We played 2 games in the ACC tournament. He came into relief in that second game. So again, he didn't have the workload that he normally would have when he's starting a game off and pitching effectively. So he's had a couple weeks in a row now where he's thrown less than what he's typically used to throwing. So I think there's probably a feeling that he's pretty fresh too. So going with him on Friday, I don't see an issue with that decision at all.
I think I've come around on the idea for sure. I think I came into the week or left the regional kind of thinking, you're only guaranteed 2 games. Do you move Jamie and Wes both up a day? They've been your 2 most informed pitchers. But the problem with Jamie day 1 right now is, A, it's a day less rest. And I do think there are some numbers, I haven't dug into them, where Jamie is better on a full week than on 5 days of rest, kind of skipping a day in that recovery, especially when you factor in, that long flight affects that a little. That's like not a normal recovery day, having to be on a flight for that long all the way across the country. The thing to me is, you're going with a guy who, like Lulu said, is quite fresh in Joey Vellini. And I think you're also setting up where you have Jamie in game 2, where either it's Joey against Oregon State's electric freshman Dax Whitney tonight, who has been quite good this year. His strikeout numbers are really impressive for anyone, let alone a freshman. But it's a big moment to throw a freshman in, no doubt. I mean, but he's on a day less rest. He pitched last Saturday. If you can win that one, you have Jamie, you have 2 chances to win, and you have Jamie, and you held back Jamie, and you feel great about that. If you were to lose tonight, who else would you want on the mound except Jamie when your season's on the line tomorrow? So I think I have come around on the thinking when I maybe entered the week in a different thought process.
Yeah, I like it for the reason you just said. If you were to have a elimination game for Florida State in game 2, if they lose tonight, obviously you set up well with Jamie Arnold, who is considered the best pitcher in college baseball, projected number 1 draft pick in the Major League Draft. All right, so if and you guys have done a lot more research on this than I have, and it's maybe a dumb question, but if there's one distinct advantage FSU has entering this series, what would it be in your opinion? And I would ask the same thing about Oregon State and your research on them. And Lulu, I'll start with you.
Well, I think the obvious one with Oregon State is the home field. They've been very good at home. They're 21-3 on the season at home. Their lack of a conference this year has really made their schedule pretty weird. They haven't played as many home games as you would expect a team to play. They've played, I want to say, 14 or 15 neutral site games this year. So again, they've had to kind of go where the games are. So the schedule's been odd for them. But again, I think playing in front of their home fans in an atmosphere that, again, is kind of packed in on top of you, I think is an advantage for them. I think, as far as Florida State goes, you've got some guys there that have been through this. They've been to the College World Series. They know what it takes to get there. They know what it takes to win a super regional. When you start looking at Jamie Arnold, who will go in the game tomorrow for Florida State, and you look at that order with Lodis, who was on this, a big part of the team last year, and Max Williams, who was a big part of the team last year. Cal Fisher was in there and played quite a bit. Farrow was a starter on that team. Jackson West. Those guys have been through the super regional battles to get to Omaha. So I think there is an experience factor there that is to Florida State's advantage because these guys have been there and done it before.
Kurt?
Yeah, I think the battle-tested thing is real for Florida State, both when you look at the history, and I think when you also look at, it's not to say Oregon State can't win this series, but Oregon State's played 2 games against teams who are still playing that are in super regionals this week, and Florida State's played 11. That could make a difference. I mean, when you talk about playing that level of competition, there's a world where, Florida State's played a tougher schedule. Oregon State, obviously, like you said, has had to really figure it out and mishmash. I think they played 19 regular season home games all year. Florida State played almost that many conference games at home, let alone not even taking all the non-con they played at home. I think that makes a difference. I think also credit to the guys at 11.7. There's a world where this is an advantageous pitching matchup for Florida State because they have 3 lefty starters. We're assuming. I think Link didn't rule out using Mendez in some kind of relief role if the season's on the line, or maybe if they're trying to close them out in game 2. But Oregon State's lineup hits like over 300 against righties and like 250 something against lefties. They are notably better against righty pitchers. And when Florida State's throwing out 3 lefties, that is an advantage. Now, Oregon State, yes, the home field could absolutely be the difference this weekend. It's kind of similar teams they are another deep lineup, a very powerful lineup. And frankly, I think a big advantage they have is a deeper pitching staff. You saw that with them coming out of the losers bracket. And after they lost the first game, I think they gave up 6 runs in the first game and gave up 6 the rest of the weekend in the other 4 games, 6 or 7, something like that. Their pitching staff is deep. Their bullpen's deeper. Florida State is more reliant on its starters. I think Oregon State is less reliant on its starters. That puts pressure on those first arms that Florida State's throwing out there to deliver more innings because Joe Charles has become somebody I think you can really count on. Peyton showed you something last week. Chris Kinnear showed you something last week. But there's just more variability, it feels like, in Florida State's bullpen than Oregon State's.
Yep. Who are some of the guys in Oregon State's lineup that Florida State's pitchers do have to at least rein in? They've got. I know that Turley has Gavin Turley, and I don't know what position he plays.
Left field.
Left field. I know that. I think he's got the home run record for hit the most number of home runs in school history. Arquette is a guy that I know they wrote about in your article, Kurt. Avia Arquette. outside of those two guys, is there anybody, Lulu or Kurt, that sticks out to you and what you saw maybe last week, if you got to see any of their game to advance last Monday, I guess it was Monday night, or this Monday night actually. Anybody that stands out to you? The one thing that stood out to me in watching them is they looked like Florida State. They got some big kids on their team, some physically mature kids. When you watched them against USC looked much smaller than Oregon State. But who stands out to you guys on that roster?
Well, there are a couple of guys that I think that you have to keep an eye on, and this is something that maybe you don't see a whole lot. They've got a couple of guys, Jacob Craig and Trent Caraway, that are two guys that don't necessarily hit for high average. So when you get down into like that lower part of the lineup, and one of the things I always look at is, when you see a lot of teams, you get down into that part of the lineup and you see, 220 hitters, 230 hitters. Not everybody can stack a 1-9 lineup. But one of the things I look at is what are the power numbers. So if you get down in that lower part of the lineup, down into the bottom third, and you see guys that have big home run numbers, that to me is a little bit more of a danger when you get into that bottom part of the lineup. Obviously a guy that hits 230 and has 12 home runs is more dangerous than a guy that hits 230 and has 2. So that's one of the things I always look at, those guys that maybe are in the lower part of the lineup that don't hit for high average. Do they put up big power numbers? Because to me, that means you've always got to pitch those guys carefully, as opposed to maybe some, you might see two freshmen in 8 and 9 spots that are both right around the Mendoza line. That can be a little easier to pitch around. So that's something that I think you have to keep an eye on, that they do have a couple of guys in that bottom third of the lineup that are capable of launching the ball out at any time.
Kurt, who's some of the guys outside of Arquette and Turley that you're paying attention to?
I got a lawnscaper messing with the dog right now, so maybe don't come to me.
Well, thankfully Murphy is behaving herself in the guest bedroom today, and I guess Lulu's dog's back at the house in Tallahassee.
Well, he's at puppy camp.
He is at puppy camp.
He's hanging out with all his dog friends that he hangs out when I'm gone.
Hey, I do have a question for you, and it doesn't really pertain to this. I guess it could pertain to this series, but I don't know if you follow Chipper Jones on Twitter.
I don't.
I'm sure that Kurt does, and but a lot's been made of. He's been really getting after college baseball in general about sportsmanship during the games, and has referenced a number of programs. He started with Kevin O'Sullivan and then finally worked his way to Florida State in at least one tweet. There was a lot made of Link getting tossed out of this last game. And do you think that all the attention that around baseball, that's happened around baseball last weekend with these sportsmanship issues, if that's what we're going to call them, do you think the coaches in this particular series will do a better job maybe of reining their kids in, as opposed to wanting the umpires to do it? Because at the end of the day, as Kurt and I talked about earlier in the week, I think they're going to follow the lead of their coaches as far as how they act on the field. Do you see that being an issue just in general, but for this series? And do you think with the way that played out at Mississippi State, they'll be more careful about what they say on the field, that kind of stuff, Lulu?
I think in a lot of this, I think stuff's being made out of something that's not really an issue. You got guys that get excited about their own play, guys that get excited about their team doing well, and let them get excited about it. I do think that there is a certain point where it gets to be over the top, but let the guys have a little bit of fun. Let there be some excitement to it. I don't know that there's necessarily anything to rein in. Yeah. As long as you're not going back and forth with the other team and stuff of that nature, I don't really see a problem.
Right. Yeah.
And Florida State's really been better about that down the stretch since Max Williams got thrown out of the game. It felt like that hasn't been as much of a thing. So much of why it became a thing on Sunday was because Link got thrown out the second inning. I think it's kind of about the umps setting the tone. If the umps set the tone and don't do things that elevate and escalate, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah. I just, it's been an interesting week with everything that went on between O'Sullivan, some of the chit chat between teams last week, and obviously Wake Forest's head coach, which I baffled by. There has been no more fear over that than what's taken place. But anyway, interesting week in college baseball off the field with all that. And I did not know Chipper was going to go nuclear. I didn't realize Chipper was a big Twitter guy, but he was getting after some folks this week. But I just want to get y'all's take on that. All right, so if we're coming back to you Monday or Wednesday to talk about Florida State advancing to the College World Series, Eric, who and what are we talking about from Florida State's perspective?
I think if that is the case and we are talking about that, I think you're probably going to have a whole lot to say about Alex Lodis and Max Williams and those guys stepping up in this type of situation. Lodis has done it all year. Max, last year, you look in 9 postseason games, he had 16 hits, including 5 home runs. So I think that's a guy that's shown in the past that he's going to step up big. He didn't have a great regional, but also at the same time had a home run, had a big RBI in the championship game. So I think you're probably talking a lot about those two guys and what they were doing in the 2 and 3 spots in that FSU lineup.
Kurt, what about your thoughts on that?
I was leaning Alex too. I mean, Alex wasn't bad by any means last week, and he worked quite a few walks. He had a couple hits, but it was probably his worst weekend of the season, which says something because it speaks to how high the season is that a 2-hit weekend with quite a few walks is his worst weekend. But to me, I think it could very well come down to, you look at Ava Arquette, the Oregon State shortstop that's going to be, looks like a top 10 pick. You look at Alex Lodis, who looks like he's going to be a first-round pick. Which of those shortstops kind of plays up to that level more? I think could very well be the difference in this. That's what I was looking at for sure.
All right. One last question. It has nothing to do with this regional, but I did happen to catch Link talking about having the transfer portal while they're out there in Oregon and have a individual hotel room set up for the coaches to meet and call potential portal prospects. Listen, it's the same thing for every sport. Football does it during the playoffs. Basketball does it during the tournament. You guys are baseball guys. Y'all follow it very closely compared to my follow. If you were going to change the portal in baseball, as Link said, it could not possibly be at a worse time, because the only good news is that we're still playing as opposed to hitting the portal full time. When would the portal need to be open? When would be an acceptable window for the baseball portal to be open?
Well, I think after the College World Series, but again, you're starting to get into, at that point, so the big advantage teams have right now is if you're not playing, you can devote a lot more time to recruiting guys that are in the portal, to bringing them on campus, doing all the things that you can do with those guys and in those situations. If you are still playing right now, Super Regional Weekend, you've got 16 teams that have to be focused on doing what they have to do still on the baseball field first, and can't spend all that time. If you're on the road right now, you can't have guys come in. You can't. You're very limited as to what you can do. So I do think that gives a big advantage to teams that are done for the season. And this is not meant as any kind of sour grapes, but Georgia had a great day in the portal yesterday. Well, Georgia, again, they're not playing anymore. Had they won their regional, advanced to Super Regional, would they have had the day in the portal that they had yesterday? I don't know. Maybe they would have. They would be playing at home, so they wouldn't be on the road somewhere, which makes it tougher on you. But the other side of that, though, is can you wait that long? Can you say, let's put this off until June the 23rd or 24th when the College World Series is over and guys have made their way to their summer teams, and you don't have as much of an opportunity then for coaches to meet with guys in person because they're all off playing summer ball? Do you have to have guys with homes before then for the purpose of admissions and all of those things? I don't know the answers to those questions. Yeah. So, is starting at that late reasonable. That part I don't know. That's way above what I've got info on.
All right, Kurt, any insight from you on that?
Link said something yesterday to the effect of, and I think he was talking about the Georgia thing. He said, the expectation is, or the hope is, sustained success, like a number of deep runs in a row. But the problem with these deep runs is it does hurt your margin for error with the portal. And it might affect the guys you can get in the portal because you're not able to host guys like they haven't been able to host guys this week. And I think that obviously last year they did really well in the portal despite making that deep run all the way into the Final Four in Omaha. It didn't affect them. They restocked pretty impressively well. The truth is, Link, I asked Link when he was talking about it yesterday, kind of like, what would your solution be? And Link was like, I don't know. Because there is no, because you're right. If you push it back into guys playing summer ball, that's a problem. But the other thing is, the thing that's unique to baseball is your freshmen and your transfer commits don't have to make it to campus. There's the draft in July where, like, for instance, Florida State did pick up a portal commit, an infielder this week from Davidson. But he's draft eligible. He's hit 35 homers, I think, the last 2 years. It's theoretically possible he gets drafted, and after you got him committed or plan on having him, he never makes it to campus. And obviously, the same's true for freshmen. So it feels like all of that needs to be more aligned, however it is. The draft needs to be around when the portal is, and those things are happening simultaneously instead of, we took this commit thinking we'd get him, and then he ended up going pro. That happened last year with a few guys Florida State got from the portal as they ended up signing because they wanted to, and they just kind of wanted to transfer the school Florida State as a backup. So it is most certainly an imperfect system, but it does kind of speak to there's, just like in football, I don't think there's any one perfect solution that's going to satisfy everybody.
Yeah. All right. So Lulu, we're 5.5 hours from first pitch, if I can do math correctly. Do you have like a pregame ritual, a game day ritual that you go through? And if so, what is it?
Well, I on a road trip like this, I've actually done part of what I would normally be doing today because I went to the ballpark yesterday and set everything up. Normally, I would get there. I'd leave when the team leaves, get to the ballpark. Typically on a road game, that's going to be a little over 2 hours before first pitch. I would set up all of my stuff, and then I've got to get up with Link at some point because we record 3 or 4 minutes for pregame before every game. So at some point, I'll get there. I'll grab Link. We'll have our 3 or 4 minutes that we get, and then really it's just go through notes one last time, look for anything that I may not have seen the first time around, and little talking points, things of that nature. But again, a lot of that's already done. The setup part I've already taken care of. So today it's going to feel probably a little less rushed than it might normally feel on a road game. At home, I usually leave the house about 3 hours and 15 minutes before first pitch. And I kind of have plenty of time to get things done. And then the final hour before we go on the air is usually a bit rushed just because of all the things that I have to do in that little bit of time at the end. But this is it does tend to feel a little more rushed on the road.
Yeah, the boys seem focused and ready to go.
Yeah, they do.
All right. Well, listen, the game's at 6 p.m. on ESPN2. So if you're listening to us, turn your television down and turn on the radio. Listen to Lulu's call from Oregon. And we appreciate you coming on, Lou. As always, we hope to have you back on next week to talk about Florida State advancing to the College World Series and try to catch you before you have to go to Omaha.
Well, and if we do win this, and we're not coming home, so travel next week will be interesting as well. I'm not sure what the plan would be, and they're not going to share that with anybody at this point. But I just know that we are not going home if we defeat Oregon State. So
I'm assuming you were optimistic and took a big suitcase.
Well, yeah, you have to, because one, you don't want to just pack for 4 days when it could be much longer than that. It's also fairly impossible to pack for 20 or 21 days. So
right.
You just kind of have to take a bunch of stuff and realize that you may have to do laundry along the way.
Well, I would, if that happens, I would not want your vet bill. I hope you've got a friend that will bail you out and go pick up your dog and keep him.
Yeah. That's going to be a stiff one.
Hey, turn it in on a business expense to Mike Alford. That's part of your travel expense. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you joining us. Lou, have a great call tonight. We look forward to hearing you and obviously catching up with you next week. Hopefully, somewhere between Corvallis and Omaha, on the western side of those two cities. So
I don't think they're going to make me walk, so that part's good.
Yeah. Well, it would be a beautiful walk. Oregon's pretty. Be a long walk, a hilly walk. But anyway, all right, Lou, rest your voice up. Have a good afternoon, and we'll listen to you tonight on the radio. And Kurt, I appreciate you hopping in from Atlanta and offering some of the stuff you learned from the Oregon guys and your research. So we're going to bring Nick on now, boys. Have a great day. All right, Nick.
Bring me on in.
What's up, buddy? So you've already been in the Moore Center today. We're going straight into football recruiting. Florida State does have I don't know, the numbers have changed since the last time we did it. 15 to 17 guys on campus. I'm not sure what that number is. And
17, 16, 17 in that ballpark. More than 15, less than 20.
All right. Well,
how about that?
We do have some breaking news from the Moore Center, and there was one expected visitor that is not here. Nick, tell us what we need to know.
Yeah, defensive end Tristan Givens did not make it this weekend for his official visit. Before people start panicking, don't know that this was a pure cancellation. I think that there are hopes that this is a reschedule, but he did not make it to campus this morning. It was kind of a last-minute thing. We found out this morning, could have been off as late as last night, as far as I know. But which it sucks because you and I both thought that his prospective official visit this weekend was probably one of the most important visitors that Florida State was going to have this weekend. We'll see if they can reschedule it for maybe a midweek or another weekend in the summer. I don't know if you're looking at his schedule right now, but he does have Tennessee and Texas A&M on the schedule. I don't know if that goes 13th or 20th, or maybe he's at Tennessee today and he did a flipperoo on us. I don't know.
It looks like Georgia might be involved in this thing now. So based on something I am reading right here, it looks like Georgia might have entered the picture. There's a tweet out by Jeremy Johnson. I'm not sure who Jeremy works out for, but
I believe that's on 3.
Okay, that 4-star. Well, we're almost brothers now, so I guess we can.
That's true.
4-star edge Tristan Givens has a boatload of SE options on his board, including Georgia. The in-state program is a dream school. So there may be – I don't know if that's the reason he's not here this weekend. Now, nobody's confirmed why or why not he has not made it. It could be as simple as he doesn't feel well, right? And had to it could be as loaded as – hey, Florida State's not in anymore, but no one's been able to find that out. But this article was late May, where it looks like Georgia has entered the picture. But Tristan did come out a couple of weeks ago and said that Florida State was one of his final 3. That hasn't been that long ago either. But so there could be nothing to this. We will obviously keep you up to date on that as we learn more about that. Hopefully, we'll have some news for you over the weekend, as we'll be down there on Sunday to get exit interviews, and generally we get some good scoop just talking to the group that's down there. So I know there was a addition to the official visit weekend. Nick, what do we need to know?
Defensive tackle, defensive end Whitley Cadeau showed up on campus this morning, so he's going to be on an official visit this weekend with Florida State. He was a late offer from Florida State. I don't even believe that Rivals has him ranked currently, but he's got some nice offers. This is a guy that I believe that Terrence Knighton went and evaluated him in person this spring, and he came away with his offer. So this should be an interesting guy to theoretically add to the board. And we'll see what he has to say coming out of his visit this weekend. He was a surprise addition, a last minute addition to the visitors this weekend. And I'm always in favor of adding more defensive linemen to the board, as you know. So
yeah. And listen, Madden Williams, he also canceled, correct? The wide receiver from.
Yes, but that putting 2 to 2 together, he's flying out to do some camp thing with Justin Jefferson. Jetta's flight camp or something like that, and there's a whole roster of really, really good wide receivers that are attending that camp this
Okay.
weekend. So I believe that visit is going to be rescheduled. I don't know when that will take place. His teammate Daniel Odom did show up this morning. So I think that shows at least the fact that this was mostly a scheduling conflict for Madden Williams. And obviously it's a far way to go cross country for him to come here for an official visit. It felt like he probably felt like his time would have been better spent learning and working out with a all-pro wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, and I don't know how likely it is they'll get him back in here. You know, I mean, it's just he's already committed to Texas A&M, I believe, and so it'll probably be hard to get him back. Glad Odom's here since I went out on a very, very thin limb at 270 pounds and picked Daniel Odom as my flip guy. So at least he's here. At least he's here. I don't think that branch is going to hold up, but it's going to it's probably going to break really quickly. But listen, we've got a ton of coverage on official visit weekend. Nick and I worked together to do an official visit weekend preview, which is at theosceola.com. We take each kid. I took the offense. Nick took the defense. We broke down who they're visited, who they have already visited, who they're going to visit after Florida State, and what we have researched and learned either from the kids themselves or just everybody they talk to, rivals, everybody. So it will be you got all the information you need there. Nick also went out this morning and did a photo gallery. So I asked this question, Nick, who would be the bus guy, the guy you want off the bus, first guy off the bus physically out of this group of players today? Who stood out to you physically as far as, boy, he looks like a football player?
Mitchell Smith, the three-star offensive tackle that Florida State bumped Auburn for his official visit for a couple of weeks. We see a lot of big kids, when we're out there at the Moore Center. And it was actually kind of funny because the way that they did it, they have so many visitors this weekend, and they almost had like a carpool line, like a conga line of all these SUVs. And Mike would go pull open both doors. Hey, how are you? Nice to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time. Dap him up, give him a hug, and then shuffle down the line. So I'm sitting there with my camera, shooting all of the pictures of all these guys, and I pan over and I see Mitchell Smith, and I go. And I look back in the camera and I do a double take in the camera. This boy is big. 6'6", 320 pounds. He certainly has the body of a SEC offensive lineman caliber. That is a big kid. That is my bus guy. No question. He looks mean.
All right. Well, yeah, I look forward to seeing him on Sunday then. I look forward to seeing this group. Now, Nick and I will be out at the Moore Center on Sunday trying to talk to as many of these prospects as we can to get instant reaction on their official visits. Nick is less optimistic than I am. He has no one committing or flipping this weekend. Now, I only answered the flip question because it was a question you asked. Now, I would not be surprised if nobody flipped, I'll be honest. But I did go out on a limb with Daniel Odom because he only has two other schools involved in his recruitment. So it seems like an easier flip. The more likely one, in my opinion, would be Devin Carter, just because I think there's going to be some flipping going on with that recruitment. But we'll see. But, yeah, so I can't wait to see these kids. All right, so we are going to get into a little bit about what was supposed to happen next weekend. And Jay Holmes has left a comment. Thank you guys for not overhyping a 16-minute video on a visit from a five-star quarterback who is not going to end up showing up at all. I did not know that was out there. I don't even know who you're referring to. But yes, obviously who Jay Holmes is referring to is Keyshawn Henderson, the five-star quarterback who is committed to Houston, has been committed to Houston, and really there has not been a ton of traction between Florida State and Henderson until last week when it came out that he was going to take an official visit to Tallahassee. According to rival Sam Spiegelman, that visit is no longer going to happen, and I believe that the kid has confirmed it on Twitter, saying that he has shut his recruitment down. Listen, You know, Nick, you and I have been talking about this quarterback situation since whatever day Schmeigel decommitted, and they offered Henderson and Bowie, Bentley, and Landon Duckworth.
January,
So
middle of January, so a long time.
Listen, this never even if they got him on the campus for an official visit, I just listen. This we're talking about the quarterback position, the premium position in college and pro football. It's a quarterback-driven sport. The fact that kid had not been on campus prior this week to me was a telltale sign that he did not have legitimate interest in Florida State or anything more than passing interest in Florida State. We're talking about a quarterback position, and we're talking about it in the NIL portal era where unofficial visits may be subsidized or not subsidized. Either way, the fact that the kid had not shown up here before this week to me was telling. So I'm not going to say that. I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, I'm just not. If the kid had made an effort to get out into Tallahassee from Houston, which is fairly flying to Jacksonville fairly cheaply, get over, take it. I mean, I think that if they had legitimate interest in Florida State, he would have been on campus by now on an unofficial visit to learn more about the program, see the facilities, have in-person relationships with these coaches, get to know their personalities, get to know some of your potential teammates. You got a new offensive coordinator in Gus Malzahn. You haven't met the head coach before. And I know it's important for every position, every kid. You know, an offensive lineman doesn't see his recruitment any different than a quarterback does. But this one does not surprise me. I'm disappointed for Florida State. This would have been, if they could have gotten this kid on campus and really gotten involved. But even if they got him on campus this weekend, Nick, for an official, I don't think one visit was going to do it for Florida State. I don't think it was going to be that there's going to be a magic pill on one visit. So I'm just disappointing because they don't seem to have any momentum at quarterback right now. By that same token, they didn't find Sperry until after. I mean, they clearly knew who he was, but he wasn't on our board, our radar, or anyone else's radar before November of last year. So, listen, I tell this to you all the time. I don't get overly excited about commitments because they're just what they are, and I don't get overly excited about official visits because they may or may not happen. This one did not happen. What's your take on it, Nick? To me, it played out. It's probably better they didn't come on campus and get everybody excited and then not sign with Florida State anyway.
Oh, I don't think that makes a difference. I think people are already excited. I think people saw Mike Norvell's name attached to a 5-star quarterback and got really, really excited. I think you really just kind of lament the fact that Florida State didn't even really get a chance to swing properly in an at-bat with the recruitment. I think that's kind of what people are most upset about. You would have liked to see him get on campus and maybe in a weird way, even if you don't land the kid, which I agree with you. I mean, this was a long shot of all long shots to land him, but to get a kid of this caliber on campus, get him around some other recruits, maybe be able to build some momentum on the recruiting trail, which it just feels like Florida State lacks that overall. There's a couple kids they got some momentum with, but just not maybe what you'd hope at this point. But yeah, I agree with you. I guess the saying goes, you can't lose what you never had.
That's right.
This was a 1 week period. And I keep going back to this. This was 1 week. The kid has been saying he's been shut down with Houston for the grand total of 6 to 7 months now, except for this 1 week period where he was supposedly going to take an official visit to Florida State. That doesn't show true interest to me. And, I said this on the board and, normally I don't go straight to NIL and money figures, but I just had to wonder. The thought came to me. I wonder if Florida State pitched Henderson a number that at least made him think about taking a visit and checking out Florida State. Maybe something similar to what Georgia offered to Luke Kromenhoek right before signing day a couple of years ago when they needed a quarterback and they were desperate for a quarterback. And I do think Florida State I don't know if they're fully desperate, but their options are low. I can't help but if there was a number that was floated to Henderson that made him think for a moment about checking out the school, and then he just basically said thanks but no thanks. There's nothing to back that. That's purely speculation on my part. But the fact that this kid has been adamant, and I don't mean quietly adamant, I mean he has publicly come out in multiple interviews over the past 6 months to say, I am signing with Houston. I am sticking with Houston. This is where I want to be. I trust the coaching staff. To have that be the case for 6 months, except for this 1 week, for him to just cancel his official visits and then reel right off into the sunset, I'm just struggling for any other reasoning. And it could just be simple. Like maybe he does. And I do know that Tony Tokarz behind the scenes has been working up a pretty good relationship with him, and maybe that was enough to spur the interest. I don't know, but
yeah, listen,
I don't think there was ever any I think you're absolutely right when you say, if this kid truly was interested in Florida State, we would have seen it months ago and have had this carried on over the course of the spring, not just for 1 7-week period.
Yeah, listen,
or 1 week period.
Yeah, and I don't think you're wrong to say that there's probably been some discussion about what his NIL deal could. I mean, we're not going to stick our head in the sand and not realize that NIL is not a part of every recruitment anymore. It is, and we talk about this all the time. For some prospects, NIL is a bigger percentage of the recruiting process than it is for others, and some of that's determined by how much you can demand and how highly sought after you are. And some guys know where they want to go to school, and if I'm supposed to make my money, I'm going to make my money no matter where I go. So yes, I think that you're right. I think the NIL is. I think these kids are all having discussions about what their NIL package could look like with all these schools that they're visiting. I think there's also a likely chance that Houston said, hey, if you go, we're going to start looking. Or possibly they said, hey, we're going to sweeten the pie a little bit if you don't go. So
yeah, and it's not like Houston is a poor program either. Like
no,
there's decent money there. So.
And listen, and here's the other thing, and we say this every freaking show that we do on recruiting. If Florida State were to somehow start this season off 3-1 or 5-1 or 6-1 or whatever, get off to a really quick start, get a game, beat a Miami, beat a Clemson, beat a Alabama, you might be able to circle back on a kid like that, particularly if you don't have your funds allocated your big funds for NIL allocated elsewhere. So, and I've said this the whole time, and I'll continue to say this: if Mike Norvell gets this program turned around, they will circle back on some kids they're not in on now. Florida State's got that kind of cachet when they win. But for a quarterback, when you're talking about Keyshawn Henderson, you're talking about he is looking at a program that went 2-10 last year and does not know what's it's not a lock that Florida State's going to go 10-2 this year or 8-4 or 7-5. I mean, we don't know what this team is yet. You got hard games against Alabama, Miami, Florida, and I know there's one I'm forgetting. Clemson. You got your brand name games there, and you got to go to NC State. You go to Virginia, both on Friday night. Anyway, long story short, I'm getting carried away here, but I think there's just so many questions that kid has about this program, right? If I come to Florida State right now, if you're a parent or you're a kid, you would have to ask yourself, will Mike Norvell be there for all 3 or 4 years of my son's career? And right now they don't know that. Where they know at Houston, Willie Fritz is going to be there. He just got hired. This will be his second season in Houston, and he's got a good track record at the Group of 5 level, similar to what Mike had at Memphis. He took Tulane to some AAC championship games like Mike did at Memphis. And, you can say that the ACC and Big 12 are equal from a conference standpoint, right? So there's, it's not a – anyway, I just think that if Florida State wants to get back in on a kid like Keyshawn Henderson – or in on a kid, not back in on a kid like Keyshawn Henderson or Landon Duckworth, they're going to have to prove themselves that this program is headed on the right and back in the right direction on the field, where winning matters and surrounding yourself with particularly a quarterback. What's his offensive line going to look like at Florida State compared to last year? Anyway, disappointing for Florida State. Recruiting's fluid. Who knows what's going to happen? You know what? I'm glad this morning I started to write a Monday preview of who's coming in. And I was like, well, I'll wait till Nick and I talk just to see what's going on. And of course, then I saw the text or the tweet about him not coming. I was like, well, at least I saved myself one profile. But anyway, anything else we need to know, Nick, about this weekend?
No. Obviously, we've got the preview that's on the website right now. Also got a photo gallery if that's your thing. I'm becoming quite the photographer. Maybe we should pick up some bird photography or something weird.
Yes, you're turning into a mini Chris Nee.
Yeah. Hey, he's a hardworking, successful guy. So I will take that as an absolute compliment.
You got your camera, you got your iPad, you were rolling along out there.
Yeah.
Y'all got matching beards.
His beard is much, much thicker than mine, but we're working on it. We're trying to fill in the patchy areas. All of the apart from Gibbons, all of the official visitors that we were expecting did show up. Rodney Colton Jr. was on his way last I checked. He should have gotten to campus by now. Cam Brinkle didn't show up this morning. Still expecting him to be there as well. But other than that, I lots of good kids on campus this weekend. And I know that I don't expect any flipping to happen or maybe one commitment at most coming out this weekend. It'd be really nice for some momentum for Florida State if they can get some kids to pop.
We both picked Brandon Bennett as the potential commitment.
Yes, we did.
Right?
Yes, we did.
The wide receiver from American Heritage.
Yeah, but other than that, I guess we'll talk about the Monday official visitors have lost quite a lot of luster, but they are expecting.
That's the thing they wrong with Hayden Ainsworth.
yeah, they've lost. Kamari Blair is also coming in on Monday, I believe, who's another offensive tackle.
It's offensive lineman week at Florida State.
Hey, it's offensive lineman week every week. Herb Hand has been busting his absolute pork chops to bring in a lot of guys.
Have a pork chop? No, it's a pot roast on the other side.
It's a pot roast. Which, funny enough, I mean, obviously, Herb used to be a chef. He is still a huge chef. And I was joking with him outside as they went and did the cooking competition right before I left. He's like, well, so are you and your kids are going to win the cooking competition, right? And he's like, well, I can't cook with them, but I can advise them. So
pot roast is going to have the FSU fans simmering with Tristan Gibbons not coming to town after Cam Brooks.
Well, let's see if we can get him back on campus first. But yes, this has been, if this continues in this direction, this is a slump of epic proportions in terms of one position group just not doing well on the recruiting trail. I've been pretty vocal that I've had my concerns about recruiting at that position for the past few months. And I have said that I'm going to withhold as much of my judgment as I can, but it's getting pretty hard. It's getting hard.
Yeah, you got other things. First of all, you have more other immediate things to worry about right now, Nick. Your Florida Panthers went down in it was just a tremendous hockey game. Now, I did not stay up to watch it. I am not.
Oh, it was such a good game.
I am not a big enough hockey fan to sit there and watch overtime. I do like it. It's fast moving, but so they're back on the ice tonight.
Yes, they are.
It's still at Edmonton, or are they in Miami?
Still at Edmonton. And then because the travel is so long, it'll actually be 3 days in between games. When they come back down to Sunrise. I stayed up. It's one of those things that you're like, oh, I guess I'm going to be staying up till midnight to watch the end of this game, and you end up just going to bed sad and pissed off.
It was a hell of a game, though. I mean, it was.
Oh man, there's a Bob played outstanding. I know he let 4 in, but Florida, the Panthers are not in that game without Bob. And there's a play that sticks in my mind, and it's when Gustav Forsling we're killing the power play for Edmonton. We're going up to the blue line. We're going up to their blue line. We had not a numbers advantage. I think it was a 2-on-3, but we had enough people there to play keep away for at least 10 to 15 more seconds. Instead, we dump the puck in. It rings around, catches a Oiler on the other side of the rink. They go right down to the end of the rink. And then McDavid does his hockey god BS that he pulls out of his Oiler. I don't know. Euphemisms. And he just passes and he scores. I'm like, we could have killed 20 seconds if you didn't dump it into the boards, but we were so hasty for a line change it ruined us in the end. So that's my soapboxing. Look, at the end of the day, you just need to take one. It doesn't matter which one you need to take. You need to take one of the first two on road ice. Road ice? Yes.
That works.
Away ice.
Works for me.
Road ice. Road ice. Hey.
Yeah.
So that be what it be. So I'm still pulling for my Cats. Edmonton looks really, really strong. I don't think it was our best game that we played this entire postseason, but this team is resilient. They always show a little bit of get back. So I'm hoping that I'm talking to you tomorrow or Sunday and the series is tied 1-1.
Yep. Well, we got a little PGA update too. As most of you probably know, Florida State fans, Luke Clanton made his PGA Tour debut yesterday in the RBC Canadian Open. He shot a 70. He has not teed off yet today. He is T96 right now. I think this top 50 in cuts. So he's got some ground to make up today, but he did shoot even par 70 yesterday. So if you want to watch Luke Clanton play golf, I think he's going to be on the Golf Channel. He's going to be at afternoon tee time, I believe, today. I think he played in the morning yesterday. So you should be able to catch him, some of his action on the Golf Channel this afternoon. All right, so a lot going on. We got Luke Clanton playing golf. We got the baseball Knowles playing against Oregon State at 6. Nick's got a late night. He's got to watch the Panthers and the Oilers and play. And then, of course, we'll be saving up our energy on Saturday for Sunday because we got to work hard on Sunday. But we will be back on Monday on the Seminole Sidelines. We will probably right now go at 3 o'clock unless something were to change, like if there was be a game postponed in Oregon and they played on Monday, something like that. Or we're at it covering recruiting. But anyway, we should be back here at 3 on Monday with a recap of not only the baseball series against Oregon State with Kurt, but we should also be back. Nick and I will be back here talking about what we learned from these recruits that are on campus coming out of their official visit weekend with Florida State. So you can go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com and check out our weekend preview, our preview of the Oregon State, our preview of the official visit weekend. Nick and I did a article there for you. He's got a photo gallery from this morning. And then obviously Kurt has all of his – he's got 3 different articles on the Oregon State-Florida State matchup, including some insight from an Oregon State beat writer who tells us a little bit more about what to expect from the Beavers in this matchup. But we'll be back on Monday. Appreciate everybody watching. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you the next time on Seminole Sidelines. Thank you, Nick.